So, meditation and mindfulness in education is the topic of our talk today. And what, so some learning objectives and what it is that I'll be talking about a little bit today. And I hope that I'm going to give the presentation, and then hopefully we will have a discussion about what are some tactics that you are using, or how we can, I'm very open for your feedback, and really would like to hear it. Um, We're going to name some benefits of meditation and mindfulness briefly, learn about mindfulness initiatives in Asheville and elsewhere. Um, Hopefully, at the end of this talk, you'll acquire some skills for yourself and for your students, and you'll be able to find mindfulness resources. So that's our takeaways from this experience. Would you take 5 minutes to help your students increase focus and resilience? Um, Meditation and mindfulness are keys to those things. And there have been many studies done on mindfulness and meditation in the space of education and in the workplace. And they have shown that these two practices help to relieve stress, create self-awareness, support emotional regulation, which supports healthy relationships, and have people have better focus through having these things. So what are and these are, I'm sorry, let me go back. These are like life skills, and we're going to talk a little bit about the appropriateness of talking about these kinds of things in the classroom. But I think we can all agree that these are things that enhance one's life experience. And so before we go too much further in, I want to just kind of like put some definitions on these two terms that we're talking about. Meditation is a practice where individuals use techniques such as mindfulness or focusing on the mind or a particular object or thought or activity to train attention and awareness to achieve mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state. So when I think of meditation, for me personally, it is, I will sit in a comfortable space, I will close my eyes, and I will either focus on my breathing or focus on, but my ultimate goal is to clear the thoughts from my mind. Meditation is a break from thinking for me. And as the more I do it, the better I get at doing that. But when I meditate, I try to not think about anything and just take that break. But there are many, many different ways to meditate, and there's many ways to do this. Mindfulness is a different thing. Mindfulness is the psychological process of purposely being in bringing one's attention to experiences occurring in the present moment without judgment. So what mindfulness is to me is being right where you are. And I have this little lesson that I shared with my son's kindergarten class a few years ago, that mindfulness is like a superpower, or you can be a superhero with mindfulness, and you have super hearing and super seeing and super smell and super sensations on your body. And what mindfulness does, or the practice of mindfulness does, is give you this extremely aware, a sense of being extremely aware of your present moment. And just a side note, mindfulness meditation is a thing, but those are not the same thing. Mindfulness and meditation are two different things. Okay, wait a second. I teach XYZ. Is it appropriate for me to talk about this with my students? We can all agree that teaching is more than communicating our subject. In many ways, especially now, we are mentors. There's a lot of benefit from offering 1 to 5 minutes of meditation or mindfulness to our classes. And what I'm advocating for in this talk is to have folks take 5 minutes a month in their classes and do a technique, something. We don't need to take over an entire class. Just a small amount can make a big difference. And I've gotten some pushback from students about doing this in my classes. I do this in my classes, these short things. But most students are very respectful and have appreciation for what they're learning. Another thing that I hear from teachers is that they may not be qualified to talk about mindfulness or meditation, and that this may not be something that's really in their wheelhouse. My discipline, computer technologies, changes all the time. And maybe that has changed my attitude about teaching things I'm learning about. But as instructors, part of our job is to teach things we're learning about. And these skills, mindfulness and meditation, are very helpful. And they're not complicated. They're simple. Meditation and mindfulness are simple. Meditation is sitting quietly and clearing your mind or listening to your breath or whatever that is. And it's a break. It gives your mind space to grow, and it promotes mindfulness. Meditation promotes mindfulness. Sometimes I get in my car and I turn on the radio and I start driving. Think about my day or where I'm going. Sometimes I'll drive in the wrong direction. I'm on autopilot. We need to have this ability, but it prevents us from being present, and it's not optimal for deep thinking. Practicing mindfulness helps turn off automatic control. If you give your students a moment to take a breath, to relax, or to have them sit quietly for a moment before a test or a presentation, you're offering a meditation. It's very simple. And because it's simple, it doesn't take very long to teach, and anyone can do it. 5 minutes a month can have a lifelong impact for folks. I'm going to share a few techniques I use in my classes, but first I want to look at two more concepts that kind of relate to this, and then I'll point to what some other folks are doing in the space. And at the end, we'll circle back to how we can implement it in the classes, and then we'll open it up for discussion. This graph you all may be familiar with is a description of the resilient zone or resiliency model. And basically what it is, the dotted line on top represents the space where the space in the middle between the two dotted lines where that kind of green wavy line is. That represents the resilient zone. That's where you're not going to get knocked around too much emotionally. You're going to kind of like be okay. And what happens is that people get knocked out of this resilience zone. So if they're in the high part of the resilience zone and above the dotted line, they have hyperactivity, or they're worried, or they've got anxiety or panic or rage. And if they're below, they're depressed or feeling isolated or fatigued. I got this graph from the ACE Learning Collaborative in Buncombe County. ACE is an acronym for Adverse Childhood Experiences. It's a questionnaire to help folks understand where their students or clients are coming from. I don't have time today to get into ACE, although it's a very worthy thing to know about and fits extremely well with this topic. The gist of it is that a traumatic event in your childhood affects how resilient you are, or how well you're able to stay into this zone. Meditation and mindfulness are tactics to help folks get back in their zone or to stay in their zone. On a personal note, when I'm meditating regularly, I'm always in my zone. I'm convinced that just 5 minutes of meditation is extremely helpful to get folks in their zone. As an instructor, I see my role as bigger than communicating my subject. If I can help folks find their zone by spending 5 minutes or even 1 minute every now and then before class or before a test or before a presentation or something like that, I think that has a lot of benefit. Another concept that is, I think, helpful to kind of understand mindfulness and how this applies is illustrated by this really sweet video called Be the Pond. and this is the audience for this video are children. The links are in the slide deck, and I will send that out to you all when we're finished the talk. So the idea here is that the fish are your emotions, and so you've got happy and gleeful and sad and angry and excited, and you've got all of your emotions. And by practicing mindfulness, we're able to be the pond instead of being the emotion, being angry. We are feeling angry, and we recognize that that emotion exists in there, but it exists in the company of everything else that's there, and we are bigger and more broad than the individual emotions or the individual things. Being in a state of mindfulness allows us to experience our emotions without them overtaking us. We recognize angry thoughts, but we don't become this. So achieving this is high level emotional intelligence, and not something that comes very easily. Again, meditation and mindfulness practices are a tool to get to this place. And it is my very strong belief that any amount that we can offer is helpful. And again, we've got the links in the slide deck. We can all agree that offering students to help them manage their emotions and stay calm in times of stress will increase the likelihood of success in their career and their lives, and that it is worth 5 minutes a month. And I'm not the only one advocating for mindfulness integration in Asheville, in the United States, but we're giving this talk in Asheville, and so I want to point to a few things that are happening. In the K-12 space, Buncombe County Schools and Asheville City Schools have implemented mindfulness programs, and they're seeing some good success in that. It's a very grassroots movement, especially in Asheville City Schools. They have like a teacher initiative to integrate mindfulness, and they're seeing good success. And I've got the links again at the bottoms of the slides for you all to take a look at later on. UNCA is integrating mindfulness and meditation into various disciplines and clubs, and they've got some good information on mindfulness as well. And look, these results are not anecdotal. I should say that the results are not all anecdotal. I'd be surprised if you found someone who meditates or practices mindfulness who wasn't able to describe the benefits from their non-scientific experiences. There are numerous controlled studies on the benefits of this practice. In an effort to give you a compact presentation, I want to share a few of them with you. One is this very famous study where mindfulness in the classroom, students in Boston were tested while participating in a program created by Transforming Education. It's one of the leaders of this kind of mindfulness in the schools thing. Students assigned to the mindfulness intervention condition showed a reduction in perceived stress and modest but significant improvements in sustained attention. These students also showed a reduced response of the amygdala, a brain structure associated with motion and stress, to negative stimuli. Together, these findings suggest that a potential value of mindfulness interventions for alleviating stress and enhancing sustained attention. So if we think about really the goals that we have as educators, we want to communicate our subject. We want people to become thinkers and to be able to create their own ideas and then articulate those ideas, and also not be discouraged when they find a time of stress in their lives. Mindfulness is a key for that. So another super famous study came with this thing where they replaced detention with meditation. And in the first year of implementing the mindful moment room at Patterson High School, I am sorry, I'm not sure where Patterson High School is, but I have a link here that links to the study. Suspensions and and verbal and physical altercations all decreased by more than half. At the same time, attendance rates increased by 3%, grade promotions increased by 19%, and average student GPA increased by 0.5%. This is a scientific study of illustrating the benefits of meditation as part of one's daily life and increasing the enjoyment of life and the success that one has in life. Be the pond, showing people how to do that is impactful to their lives. And I'll conclude. We've got I think 2 more slides. I'll conclude this this kind of quick review of initiatives out there. I became aware of this study at our recent mindfulness conference at AV Tech. The folks at Aetna, the huge insurance company, looked at productivity and what contributes to it, and they found that workers who are stressed are not as productive. That, I am sure, is not a surprise for anyone. Teaching mindfulness techniques and giving space for it at the workplace led to a significant increase in productivity, resulting in an 11-to-1 return on the investment of their mindfulness trainings. 11-to-1 return. And that's just the money. These people now have a higher quality of life and are generally, I hesitate to say better people, but they are able to regulate themselves in their resiliency zone and to recognize that they are greater than the emotions that they're feeling through mindfulness and meditation practices. So I have a few things that I do in my classes that I'd like to share with you. And I'm not, I believe that I will start doing this in every class, but I haven't yet done this in every class. But in most of in many of my classes, I have these tactics for people. So one of them, or these 3 first ones, have to do with a concept called embodied cognition. And basically what that means is that your body can tell your mind how it feels. So we often think of it going the other way, right? So I think I'm sad, so I'll have a frown on. Well, it so turns out that if you smile, you tell your mind that you're happy. And so doing something as simple as putting a pen or a pencil in your mouth, forcing your mouth to make that movement, those muscles to engage, you increase your happiness at the moment. So I'm kind of like going backwards on this list. Another thing that I do with my students that has to do with embodied cognition is to have people make themselves big. I call it, or it is called, the Superman pose, where you put your hands on your hips and you stick out your chest. And by doing that, you are also telling your mind that you are feeling confident and that you have a greater strength. And then the other kind of embodied cognition thing that I do is this breathing exercise, where one breathes in over the span of 4 seconds, holds their breath for 4 seconds, breathes out for 4 seconds, and then holds their breath for 4 seconds, and then repeats that. And just as like an anecdotal reflection on that breathing exercise, the other night, like, it was all coming down. The coronavirus, it was coming here. It was coming for me. It was coming for my family. And I was really having like some physical ramifications to that. My heartbeat was way up there, and I was feeling extremely stressed out. And I did this breathing exercise, and I felt my heart rate go down, and I felt myself relax. And so if I can, through embodied cognition, get to a state where I'm able to get into my resiliency zone, and I'm able to recognize that I'm greater than the emotions that I'm feeling, I think that that is a tactic, that those are just like these little nuggets that you can give to your students, and they can use that to help themselves in those situations. So another thing that I'll do in my classes is I will have them take a moment to fully experience their present moment, and it doesn't take very long. I think that you can be extremely effective uh, by doing this for a minute or 5 minutes, and you put on the timer and say, "Okay, class, for 1 minute, we're just going to be mindful about where we're at," and that helps people to get into their zone. Of course, 1 to 5 minutes of meditation or longer in a class, I think is super beneficial. And you can, if you don't know a lot about meditation practices, you can watch or listen to a short guided meditation, or there's many, many resources on YouTube. A Google search for mindfulness guided meditation or mindfulness practices will bring up many, many, many options for you to share with your classes. In the notes of this talk, I have many links that lead to resources for folks. And that is the end of this talk.